Hello everyone! As the Gwent expansion Master Mirror approaches, the first journey is coming to a close. The journey added a Battle Pass style feature into Gwent filled with incredible cosmetics and cool quests released weekly, as well as a great story chronicling the meeting of the Bard and the Witcher. The story shows the events from both characters' perspectives as they progress, split into 4 chapters. I'm going to read each of the chapters from both characters' perspectives so that you don't have to. I'm also going to give my opinion on what the next journey is going to be and the reasons that I think that. I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 2, Dandelion. One had to admit that music stimulates the senses. The bard was good with rhymes, knew how to sing, and how to navigate feminine shapes, ergo, he must be the highly desirable type. Oh, how the wenches eagerly displayed their assets to him, creating a heated atmosphere that even vodka couldn't quench. While Dandelion did not partake in the festivities, he stayed nearby to accompany one of the more eager-looking feminine inhabitants of Goulet. He soon felt pleasure, one that he'd longed for since morning. Suddenly, he heard an angry roar sending all his prospects of pleasure straight back to hell. The bard was lying under both the stage and the wench, with his sword out. Fortunately, he managed to sheath the blade before the armed assailants entered his hideout, and, when they rushed at him, Dandelion did not fall back, successfully defending his lady. Nonetheless, he pretended to be a weakling, so the scoundrels would lower their guard, allowing him to strike at an opportune time. A familiar-looking witcher quickly joined, clearly intent on rescuing his favourite performer. 2 fearless heroes against some common no-good thugs. Dandelion liked those odds. Once the situation was under control, Dandelion kissed the rescue maiden goodbye and walked casually away into the celebrating crowd. He did not say farewell to the Witcher, as men have no need for words in such situations. But after a while, the bard noticed that he was being followed and turned nonchalantly, stretching out his hand to the man behind him. Witcher awkwardly returned the gesture, grabbing his sleeve instead of his palm. Dazed by his brilliance, he barely managed to speak comprehensively, yet it was clear that he wished to converse. It was only after a while that he regained his composure in order to introduce himself as Geralt of Rivia. And what he failed to say aloud, even though it was painfully obvious, was that he needed company. A witcher's work had to be oh so lonely, with his horse likely his only stable companion. So Dandelion suggested moving to a quieter place, a well-renowned bordello with a great kitchen. For appearances, of course. He used some irrelevant excuse to go there, but in truth, it was just an act of benevolence. So they set off together, the bard and the witcher. Upon reaching the door of the Little Flower, Dandelion came to the conclusion that his assailants must have been sent by some jealous competitor. He dug deep within his memory and recalled a man from Sidaris who had clearly envied his talent. That coward and talentless piece of shit! He would have to be such a wretched dickwad to send hired thugs to kill the more capable poet. Dandelion simply could not allow, in good conscience, such an affront to remain unanswered. He had the urge to immediately depart in order to seek justice. However, revenge had to wait, since the bard had a witcher to entertain. Geralt, oblivious to his rudeness, seemed enthralled by the amply bosomed owner. Dandelion wondered when the mutant had last enjoyed, but decided to not follow that thread of thought any deeper. Determined to make the best of the situation, he ordered from a lovely serving maiden a few local delicacies this establishment was famous for. The bard spared no expense on his new friend by procuring a sizable quantity of their finest vodka. In return, he only hoped that the witcher would open up and start talking more. Well, he did not. With time, however, the bard had to admit that Geralt could be quite an amusing companion, especially after having knocked back a few shots. Dandelion even managed to get his real name out of him, which was Geralt Roger Eric de Hort Bellegarde. Exactly that. Chapter 2, Geralt. One had to admit that music soothed the savage beast. Those who had previously given Geralt hostile glares now joined in his merriment by drinking vodka and consuming sausages. This, coupled with lively music and dancing, raised all their spirits. Ergo, he must be a good guy. Nonetheless, Geralt did not partake in most of the festivities, but he stayed there to watch the carefree, twirling inhabitants of Goulet. He felt bliss, the kind of bliss that he had not felt for far too long. Suddenly, he heard a scream, and all his bliss went straight back to hell. The Witcher's senses pinpointed the scuffle as occurring under the stage. He rushed in with a sword in hand, only to quickly sheath it at the sight before him. The assailants were unarmed. They grabbed their terrified victim, the young bard from earlier, who seemed to have finally recovered from the previous night. They shook him violently with their bare hands, preparing to strike. Behind them, a young, half-naked wench was screaming her lungs out, unsuccessfully trying to get between the attackers and the terrified bard. It was a simple equation then. 4 bruises against 1 man cowering, clearly unable to put up even a meagre defence. Geralt decided to even those odds. Once the assailants were lying on the ground and the wench covered herself, Geralt felt like something did not add up. The poet had vanished. Quite suspicious, thought the Witcher. The so-called noble propagator of culture escaped a little bit too hastily. What if he had a guilty conscience? Maybe did something that would put the whole situation in a completely different, less savoury light. Fortunately, he did not make it far. Geralt noticed the escapee still in the crowd near the stage. Taking a cue from the thugs, the Witcher grabbed him by his colourful attire. The youngster was scared at first, but quickly managed to compose himself. Holding his hat with a heron feather, he bowed politely and introduced himself as Dandelion. He promised that this was all just a simple misunderstanding and would gladly answer any questions in a more amicable location. Actually, he knew a perfect place, a brothel of sorts, where he had conveniently left most of his belongings the previous night. With angry shouts already coming from the stage's direction, it became pretty clear he desperately needed help. So they set off together, the Witcher and the Bard. It was no great surprise to Geralt that the burly madame who ran the Little Flower was already well informed about the situation. Rumours, along with other unsavoury things, tended to quickly and easily spread in such establishments. She revealed to him that the wench recently deflowered by Dandelion was the youngest sister of 4 notoriously overprotective brothers. To make matters worse, she was betrothed to a wealthy, albeit extremely unpleasant merchant, a union that the family desperately needed, she assured him. Case closed, thought Geralt. He could now part ways with a clear conscience. Nonetheless, Dandelion, cheerful and seemingly carefree, showed a profound lack of understanding regarding his predicament. The poet, having seemingly just snapped out of a daydream, ordered 2 portions of groats with onions, and a bottle of lousy, yet strong moonshine. "Cheapest possible," the bard muttered under his breath as he tossed over the last coin from his purse. Thus, Geralt appreciated the gesture of the meal and refreshment that much more. He only wished that Dandelion would cease talking so much, at least while eating supper. Well, he did not. With time, however, the Witcher had to admit that he was growing less annoyed with the ceaseless prattle, especially after having knocked back a few shots. The bard even taught him a song about maidens from Vicavaro, something like that. Hey guys, thank you for joining me for Chapter 2 of the Gwent Journey story. I love the way it progresses in this chapter, but I am ashamed to say I didn't actually know that that was Geralt's full name. How many of you knew? You should definitely let me know if I'm alone in this, because it's a little embarrassing. I'm really enjoying the differences in their perspectives this time. Dandelion's exaggerated, usually drunk, perspective on how everything happened, very self-centered, very Dandelion. And then Geralt's more honest, blunt, cold reality of what happened. I really enjoyed it this time, that was very good. Chapter 3 continues in the links below, can't wait, see you then.